Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Shir of Likutey Moharan Torah Chaf Gimel. We had just started it, and so basically a little uh, synopsis of what we are learning so far. The get together of Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania and Saba the Beatuna. It's a long story how this whole thing came about. Um, and it's a whole basic confrontation between Yaakov and Esav. The Sabbath Beatuna, the sages of Athens, they represent the the Malchus Sitra Achra, the Emuna of Sitra Achra, the 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 whole union of Esav. The Gro speaks about it, and the Malshah speaks about it, the Rita speaks about it, and Rabbeinu speaks about it and reveals unbelievable secrets and mysteries that are embedded in these stories. Now, the stories, on the face of it, just looking at it, al pipshat, uh, they seem to me to make almost no sense at all. And this particular segment it's a sort of a contest between the sages of Athens, of Greek or Rome, whatever, and Reb Shua ben Hanania was it. Hakima the Yudai was like the Maschochem, the wisest of all the people of his generation. It's interesting that the Maseches Avos they say that about Rabbi Shua ben Hanania is as Ashrei Yoladato is how fortunate is the mother that gave birth to him, and this symbolizes the essence of the Chochmah that of Rabbi Shua ben Hanania, and what that Chochmah represents, as opposed to the Chochmah of Chochmah Yavan, of the Saba de Beatuna. The Chochmah of Yaakov, who is the central figure of this Torah, the Maisa, is continuity, is the ability to give birth and procreate, for things to have hemshech, to have continuity, as opposed to Saba de Beatuna, whose wisdom is sterile. There's no procreation in that. It's just for right now. It's even for right now. It is nothing. The basic thing that they tell him in this particular sikha is they say to him, tell us words, false words. In other words, tell us a lie. In itself was a tell us a lie. I mean, it was like a. So he said, we had a mule, and she gave birth, and the fowl that she gave birth to had a star tzavor, a last will and testament, hanging around its neck. It said that it owes my father's home 100,000 zuzim. So they tell him, since when does a mule can give birth? So he tells them, well, those are false words. This is the lie. So they ask him, okay, let's get another question. A salt that spoils. What do you salt it with? Because usually you use salt in order to preserve meat or anything else. You salt it, and this is. But what if salt itself becomes spoiled? How do you salt it to preserve it? Well, what do you salt it to preserve it? So he told them with the placenta of a mule. So they said, since when does a mule have a placenta? So he answers them, since when does salt spoil? The whole conversation we spoke about, the whole conversation is so, it like, even children don't play like that. They said, tell us a lie. So I told him it's a lie. Told him a lie. He said, okay, no, it's a lie. Well, you asked me to tell me a lie. And we've explained that on a deeper sense, what's going on here is that they asked him, what is the source, the shirish of lie? We know what the kedusha of lie is. The kedusha of lie, the shirish of kedusha, we know what the shirish of kedusha is. The shirish of kedusha is or upon him. That's the emes that we know that the Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world, and everything that we do in this world has to lead towards that, achieving and receiving that madrega of being able, to receive the or upon him. Already a few Torahs were dealing with that. With Torah Chafalef deals with that, to a great extent. All the Torahs lead to them, So they asked him, like, what is Keviyochel, the or upon him, the essence of, quote unquote, the truth of a lie? What does it mean? What is the essence of the truth of the lie? What is the essence of the lie? The root of the lie. The answer is that the root of the lie is such a lie that when you live according to that lie, when you live in it, you can't get out of it. There's no way that you can get out of it, even if you know that it's a lie. He said, what is it? And this is, as we will learn, this is Taivas moment. That's greed. And as opposed to this, we have or upon him. This is Emunah. This is or emes. And this is B'chinas Chaim. So Rabbeinu says as follows: Ki yesh ponim l'kedusha. There is a bechina that's called ponim l'kedusha, shem anpin Moharan. This is a glowing face. This is a or upon him. Now it says that or upon him is B'chinas Chaim. That is the essence of life. Life that never ends. Life that has continuity, has continuation, that bears fruit. K'mo shekosuv, uve'or pnei melech chaim. In the light of the face of a melech, there's life. So here we see that anybody who is zoicha to a bechina of or upon him, the supernal or upon him, he's zoichet to a bechina of life. So that's one foundation that Rabbeinu puts down. The bechinas panim, that bechinas panim is also bechinas simcha. Not only is it life, it is also simcha. K'mo shekosav in Tehillim, it says, "Todieni orachaim," you will guide me on a path of life. Soiva smochos espanecha. Satiated with gladness, espanecha, your face. In other words, we know now we can see that simcha is b'chinas panim. Simcha is panim. So before we say that panim is life, is chaim, now we learn that panim is simcha. Now we tie all of this together, that panim and simcha and chaim are all aspects of the same thing. Dichtiv, it is said, V'techi ruach Yaakov, and the ruach of Yaakov was rejuvenated. When Yaakov Avinu was convinced that Yosef HaTzadik is not alive, then he was in mourning for 22 years. And everybody tried to console him, but he would not receive consolation. She explains the reason why he didn't receive consolation is because, when a person is dead, then there is a decree for that person to be forgotten. In other words, he's no longer part of the day-to-day reality. But when someone passes away, there's a decree that he should be forgotten. But being that Yosef was alive, so his presence was always present, was always right now, was always going on. But Yaakov Avinu. But since Yaakov Avinu was convinced that Yosef died, so that presence by Yaakov Avinu, was expressed by mourning, but deep mourning that never, didn't end for 22 years. When the brothers came back and they sent a message through Serach Bas Osher to let Yaakov Avinu know that, to prepare him for, to hear the news that Yosef is alive. So, because they didn't want to tell him at once, because, that can be a horrible shock. Such a simcha all of a sudden can kill a person. So what they did was they sent the daughter of Asher, Serach, to her grandfather, and she was playing an instrument, and she was singing, Od Yosef Chai. Yosef is still alive. That was like an in-between. It wasn't, an open statement, that didn't tell the news that Yosef is alive. But suddenly, Yaakov Avinu is being exposed to the possibility. It's not a certainty by him that Yosef is no longer alive, Od Yosef Chai. So when the brothers come to him and they tell him that not only is Yosef alive, but he is the ruler of the entire land of Egypt, he refuses to believe them. when he sees the wagons that Yosef sent him to carry him and all his family members to bring it to Mitzrayim, then he believed. The Chazal said that he believes it because the last thing that Yaakov Avinu learned with Yosef before Yosef was sold to Egypt was the halachas of Egla Arufa, of a young heifer that has to be beheaded. If Chas Chalila, there's a murder victim found, and they measure how close it is to the towns around him, and the town closest to where the victim is found, the sages that live, the chachamim that live in that town, they bring an eglah, a calf, a female calf, to a nachal eitan, to a flowing brook that has waters that keep on flowing. It never dries, because a brook that even dries once in 7 years is already called nachal kozov, a false brook, a false fountain. So we see here that the word kozov, the word sheker, is tied up with something that stops, a flow that stops. So the eglah has to be beheaded dafka on a nachal eitan, a brook that does not flow, that is pchinas emes. Those are the last halachas that he learned with Yosef. So he says he gave him all his chokhmah, he gave to Yosef. Now that inyan, that the last halachas that they learned together was Egla Arufa, only Yaakov knew and Yosef knew. Nobody else knew. So when he saw the agolos, the wagons, agolos is Mishorish Egla Arufa. So being that the wisdom of Yosef and Yaakov was such that Yosef has communicated in code to Yaakov Avinu, the irrefutable proof that it was him. And then Yaakov Avinu agreed, and the effect on him was it basically brought him to life. It says, Vatechi Ruach Yaakov. The Ruach of Yaakov became alive. It means that he became happy. So now we know that Or upon him is Chaim, and Chaim is Simcha, and Simcha is Orachan. They're all, it's Or upon him. They're all, all three Bechinas are actual expression of the same thing. But Chiruach Yaakov, this is Bechinas Simcha. I was happy. I was happy that you heard that Od Yosef Chai, his son Yosef, is still alive. So we see that Simcha means life. We find here that somebody who is Zoicha to Or upon him, that the light of the face of Hashem, he's Zoicha to a Bechina of Chaim and a Bechina of Simcha. All this from the side of Kedusha. All this is the side of Yaakov. Now we go to the side of Esav. And parallel to that Bechina of Or upon him, the Sitra Achra has, parallel Bechinas to the Kedusha, but whereas the Kedusha, the Malchus, is the lowest Bechina, and above is the Yesod, and above is the Hod, and above is the Hod and the Netzach, above it the Tiferes, above it is the Gvura and Chesed, above this is the Gvura and the Das and the Bina and the Chochma, and the very top, there is the Keser. In other words, the Keser is the highest of all Bechinas. But the Sitra Achra, it's verkehrt, it's opposite. The Emuna, the false Emuna, is the highest Bechina, and the deeper, the more profound, the more subtle the aspects of Tuma become, the deeper, the more steeped in Tuma it is. So the lowest level of Tuma is Keser, is the Keser, what they call Kisra de Masavusa, the Keser of filth, of Tuma. It's exactly the opposite of Keser the Kedusha. That's the highest Bechina in the Kedusha. The Keser is the lowest Bechina in the Tuma. In order to understand it, you can take it, for instance, somebody who is very much into Tavis Achila, for instance. Okay? When a person is into Tavis Achila, so the most rudimentary level of Tavis Achila, he likes to eat a lot. Now, what happens when he gets deeper and deeper into Tavis Achila? There's a limit to how much a person can eat. At a certain point up, you fill up, and it's like it's no longer eating; it's torture. So, what is that? What happens when he gets lower and lower? He becomes an Epicurean. He becomes a foodie. He becomes a maven. The food is no longer that it has to be plentiful. It has to be exquisite. It has to be, and the more sophisticated his taste, the more tumadik he is, and the deeper he is in Tuma. And the Keser of Tuma, which means that's the quote unquote the darkness of the face of Tuma, is Tavis moment, is greed. And he says V'yesh ponim sitra achara. The Rebbeinu says there is a face of the sitra achara, of the face of Tuma. Shehem anpin chashuchim. These are darkened faces. On the Kedusha is or upon him, it's light, it's chaim, it's simcha. In Tuma is anpin chashuchim, is darkened face. It's smora shechira. There's avodas alila. This is idol worshipping. How do we know that idol worshipping is an aspect of panim, of pana sitracha, but that is the same thing. So he says in Shmois, it's embedded in a remez, in a pasuk, lo yelcha, in lo yelcha Elohim achirim al ponai. You will not have false idols on my face. What does it mean, on my face? It comes to prove to you, it alludes to that avodas alilim, that idol worshipping, is a bechina of panim. Panim is a source. It's avodas alilim. It's idol worshipping. This is what Marsh Chayr, this is the Etzav is. This is what the panim sitra achar. That is on the theoretical level. And Rabbeinu says, "Ve'elo elu bnei Adam hanoiflim b'taivas momen." These people who falter and get deeper, steeped in greed. Ve'einu ma'aminim sheKadosh Baruch Hu yichol lefarnes es ha'odem b'siba kala. They don't believe that the Kadosh Baruch Hu can give parnasa to a person, can sustain a person with the merest effort, just a little effort. That's all it's needed. What is, they chase the parnasa with tremendous hardship. They are the one that actually mekayim, that they're eating their bread in sorrow. We learned, that Kadosh Baruch Hu punished Adam Arishon after Adam Arishon ate from Esadas, and he told him, Arura ha'adamo ba'avurecha, the land, the ground is cursed because of you. And he says, Be'itzavon tochlena, you will eat whatever the earth gives to you in sorrow, all the days of your life. So, in other words, that Adam will have to work very hard, in cultivating his land, in growing the crops before he can eat. And he will eat the fruit of the land in sorrow and in great toil. And Rabbeinu says as follows, and anybody who is running after his parnasa with great yagir, with great toil, he's also in this aspect. That what? He's eating his bread in sorrow and in toil, in great effort. And it says, V'atzvus imorosh chayro. Atzvus is morosh chayro. It's depression. What does it mean? Eilo bnei Adam niksharim beponim sitra achra. These are people who get tied up, they get ensnared in the face, in the quote-unquote, the black glow of sitra achra. P'chinas Elohim acherim. This is false idols. P'chinas choshech, as we said before. This is darkened faces. And that, as opposed to when Or Aponim is Chaim, this is P'chinas Misa. This is, it's as if they are dead. Kmo shekosu v'machshechim oshivani, Megillas Eichel. This is where Miyahu says, he puts me in the darkness, kimsei olam, like the deceased, that the dead people of the world. What it tells them, that choshech, the darkness, is an aspect of misa, of death. V'alehem ne'amar, this is what it said about when Yecheskel told Am Yisrael, l'maisal pipshat, he says, kaspam b'chutzes yashlichu, v'zahav lo nido yeh, their silver, they will throw in the streets, and their gold will become nido. In other words, they won't be able to save themselves by paying gold and silver when their enemies will come upon them. They won't be able to ransom themselves. But what Rabbeinu goes deeper here is, he says that there is a bechina where gold, zahav, is equated to nida, to the tumah of nida. And tumah of nida is equated by Chazal to b'chinas avodas halilim. We see that avodas halilim shares an aspect with nida. What is it? How is it? K'mo she'amru Chazal, Chachamim zochar livrocha, they said Masechus Shabbos, minayin avodah zarah shemitoma kenido. How do we know that avodah zarah is tumadik is Mitama. Anybody who carries over the Zara, it's Mitama Kenida. It's as Tomadik as Nida. Kmoshin Nemo, Tizran Kemoy Dava. That anybody who carries over the Zara becomes Tuma like a Nida that is making anybody who carries a Nida Tumadik. With this we learn that Avodah Zarah and Nida are both aspects of one and the same Tuma. However, says Rabbeinu, Aval elu bnei adam shemasam motanu be'emuno, these people whose masal matan is be'emuno. What does it mean? What is about be'emuno? They believe that Kadosh Baruch Hu can give them parnasa, with a minimal effort. They don't have to work so hard. Hem dveikim be'or aponim l'kedusha. They are locked in to the or aponim, the face of kedusha itself. And it says, Ki en emuna b'lo emes, because there is no emuna. In other words, the life of emuna, the thing that makes emuna so fruitful and so rejuvenating, is the bechina of emes in it. And emuna below emes, and he says, the Zohar says, there's a pasuk that vayat tzedek ezel mosnov. Then in Balak it says, Mashiach will come. It says vayat tzedek ezel mosnov, and tzedek will be his garter, his belt. Ve'emuna ezer chalatzov, and emuna will be his the belt that he wears. I do tzedek kind of emuna. The Zohar says tzedek and emuna are one and the same. So the Zohar says almost. It's true that tzedek and emuna are the same thing, in the sense that they are both bechinas malchus. As we will learn in Mitzvah Shem and Torah Chavdalad, the malchus has, like everything, it has the outer side, the chitzonius, and it has the inner essence of it. The outer essence of the malchus, of spheres of malchus, in any world, in Asiya, in Yitzira, in Bria, in Atzilus, the outer essence is emuna. The inner essence is the bechina of Keser, of the world that is below that malchus. In other words, if you take the malchus of Olam Yitzira, the outside of the malchus of Olam Yitzira is emuna, of Olam Yitzira, and the inside of Spheres HaMalchus of Olam Yitzira is the Keser of Olam Asiyah. It includes entire Olam Asiyah underneath it. The Bechina of Emuna, the Bechina of Malchus, is the Bechina of the Shechina. That's what the Shechina is. That's the expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now that expression can come in two ways. When Am Yisrael is doing what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants them to do, then the Shechina is blessed. When the Shechina is blessed, the Shechina is bestowing bracha to everyone. But if Chas v'Shalom, Am Yisrael is not doing what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants them to do, then the Malchus, the Shechina Kevyochel, becomes separated from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What does it mean it's separated from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? It separates from the Bechina of Emes. Then the Malchus becomes judgments. then the Malchus becomes the instrument to punish the people in the world for whatever it is that they did. This is called tzedek, justice. When Am Yisrael chas v'chalila does not do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, then the Malchus is in a level of tzedek. It's not connected to the emes. It's not connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as it were. But when the Malchus the Shechina is connected to Kudsha Brichu, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then the Malchus is connected to the emes, then it becomes the source of blessing, the source of sustenance, of wealth, of ease. Because Lemaisa, when a person believes, when Emunah connects with the emes, which means where your emunah is connected to the fact that the Kadosh Baruch Hu has created the world, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu sustains the world at all times. That means that the emunah is connected to the truth. Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world, and He sustains it at all time. When you live it, when you live that level of emunah, your life suddenly becomes easy. You don't have to work so hard. You don't have to bother so hard. Because you believe in the truth. You believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, and you believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sustaining the world. So what do you need to do? You need to do some ishtadlus. But it's not your ishtadlus that's giving you parnasa. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you parnasa. The deeper your emunah in the emes is, the more deeply you believe, the more obvious it is to you that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created the world and He's running the world. The easier it is for you, to get anything you need, to receive everything you need, because the channels are open. Because it's the Malchus is no longer tzedek by you, it's Pchinas Emunah. So that's what the Zohar says, Hainu tzedek, Hainu Emunah. They are both aspects of the Malchus. So why do you say that Mashiach is going to wear tzedek around his hips, and his belt is going to be Emunah? They says, well, tzedek and Emunah are the same thing. So the Zohar answers, Hainu tzedek, Hainu Emunah. They are both euphemism to the spheres of Malchus. And there says, Emunah is Karyas. When the Malchus is called Emunah. When it's connected to the truth. The spheres of Emes is called Emunah when it's connected to the truth. But without the Minas Emes, in other words, it's not connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because, that euphemistically, it's not connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because Am Yisrael is not doing HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants them to do, Chas v'Chalila. Then it's called tzedek, justice. Justice is harsh. Justice is the justice is carrying out the justice, as it were. And this also is miramas on Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael, who are B'chinas Spheres HaMalchus, because they're the one who are revealing the Malchus HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world. When they are Zoche to Emes, they are Zoche to Emunah. It's one and the same. Nimtza she'ikar Emunah al de Emes. The mainstay of Emunah is when you believe in the truth. The Emes or upon him, Emes is the or upon him. It says in Sifrei Kabbalah, since Enes and Menua are joined to the hip, as it were, When a person is Zocher to Emunah, a real Emunah, he is Zocher to Emes. That is Or upon him. This is how a person is Zocher to Or upon him. And we'll just go into here, and it says really quickly, and it says in the Sefer Etz Chaim, Shah Yud Gimel Perek Yudalet, it says over there that, there are 13 midos of Rachamim. Hashem, the 13 rectification of the beard, of the Kesser. The parts of Arich Anpin, which is the Kesser. The 7th rectification, Hashem, Kel, Rocham, Chonum, Rav Chesed ve'emes, Noitzach Chesed alofim, Nose Avon v'feshe v'chator v'naki. The middle, it takes 13. So you have 6 from one side and 6 from another side. The 7th is the middle, right? The emes, the middle bechina, which means that's like the menorah, that's the one candle that connects from the top to the bottom, is emes. The bechina of emes, that's the middle, the 7th bechina of the 13 midos of Rachamim. And Reb Nosson says, in Likutey Moharan as follows: the emes is a bechina of the face of the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Because anybody who is zeicher to really know the truth, but to really know it, that what? That the Kodesh Baruch Hu has created everything, something from nothing, from total nothingness. Kodesh Baruch Hu sustains and gives life to everything in His grace, in His will. And he's watching over everything in a divine providence on particular every single thing. That knowledge of the truth, knowing that truth, is Ha'oras Panim, is Hashem is shining to you, His face to you. When you know the emes, this is the main Ha'oras Panim, the main, the shining of the face of Kodesh Baruch Hu onto you. And he says, like in Gashmias, a king went in his room, nobody knows about him. You know that he exists, but he hides his face. But when you see it, when you see him, you see something that was already hidden from you. Kivyochol lahavdil, the same thing with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. You can't see him obviously with physical eyes. Even in the eyes of one's mind, you can't see him. But when it shines, when it sparkles in your mind, there is a knowledge that you don't even know what it is that you know, but you know it. In Torah Chavdalad, Rabbeinu calls it Mati velo Mati. You get it and you don't get it. It means even though your mind is not capable of actually capturing and understanding the truth and seeing Kodesh Baruch Hu, even with the minds of your eye, there is a certain kind of reflection that fills you that you know. In fact, you know it as if you see it with your own eyes. This is what it's called Ha'oras Panim, that Hashem shines His face to you. This is what in Birkas Kohanim they bless us every single day. But the main Or Panim, you cannot get that without Emunah, because the actual Or Panim, which is the truth itself, in other words, knowing the veracity of the Likutey of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can't grasp it, because it's a light that is far too great. The eyes cannot see it, and the mind cannot see it, because if it would be evident to everybody, the godliness of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the omnipresence of the omnipotence of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the world would stop existing, will become nullified. It also says even the light of the sun was just, mashush b'mashush b'mashush, trickled down from the light of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. You can't look at it because the light is so great. How much more so the source of all light. And that's why when Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem Baruch Hu, wanted the world to exist, so what he did, he constricted his light. He held back his light, which is Or upon him, which is the truth. As it says, V'achen ata kel mistata, you are absolutely the hiding God. Dafka, because of all these constrictions and all these veils that cover up HaKadosh Baruch Hu's absolute truth, you are able to get an inkling of the emes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because they say, what happens when a person looks straight at the sun? It gets blinded by the light. When the light is too much, the result is blindness. In order to be able to receive and appreciate the light has to be dimmed to a point that you are able to receive it, to accept it, and to digest it. So the Kadosh Baruch Hu, as it were, dims his light. He constricts his light to the point that so much so that with our minds we can get a glimpse that even though we don't see what it is that we see, we know. Why? Because we have the keli, we have the vessel to receive the assurance of the emes, the tzneitzus, the sparkling spark of the emes, with the tool which is called emunah. Emunah makes it possible for us to face the emes, and then we get it. But what would happen when a person's emunah is chas v'chalila, that nothing is in this world except money? There's nothing to life, chas v'chalila, except this world. And what's the most important thing in this world to people? Is food, right? The Gemara says, "Kol ma'aseh odom lafiu," everything that the person does, it's himself ends up in his mouth. And a person needs to eat all the time. So that's why the illusion that money is everything gets a toehold, because you have to eat every day. And you have to get money in order to eat. Okay. So the important thing is money. So then your emunah turns to money. It becomes greed. The emunah is the satellite dish, as it were, that depends where you aim it. If you aim it towards the Kadosh Baruch Hu, towards the truth, you will get the transmissions of the truth. And if chas v'chalila, you aim it at false gods, at idols, at avodah zarah, at taivas mammon, you get that transmission, which means you get darkness. It means you get marash chayra, you get depression, you get pchina of death. There's no continuity. It doesn't give. We think, that when people earn money, now they have more money, they have more money, they have more money, but they have absolutely nothing. Because Avodah Zarah is sterile, like a mule. Bezat Hashem, up to here we will learn today. We'll continue this, a little bit more of what typifies and what is the making of that dark world that constitutes Taivas Mammon and everything that is involved in that. Mitzvah Hashem will do it next week. Bezat Hashem, tomorrow, Thursday night, we will meet in the Breath of a Medrash, where we are learning Torah Memtes. Last week, I was a bit fuzzy in my mind, and we started learning Torah Chavdalad. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But nevertheless, we started already Torah Memtes, and we will go back to Torah Memtes Mitzvah Hashem. So, Mitzvah Hashem, I'll see you all tomorrow. Obviously, it's available on Zoom in Mitzvah Hashem. And until then, all the very best to every single one of you.